Good afternoon. This is the In My Opinion show. I am Henry Hatter, your host for today. I have an interesting guest today. He is well spoken, well written, and ready to entertain you or inform you or illustrate to you the best the Black community has to offer. We will now focus upon a series of thought provoking questions dealing with the HBCUs. HBCUs is the heartbeat of the American Black community, and has been for years, and still is doing the job that it needs to do. So, my guest today is um, Jameel Hasan. He's a writer, he's a spokesman, he's a speaker for different occasions, and he's our guest, and will do a good job as we focus upon issues. There will be several other issues that I will also include that we will be discussing, including the Black community itself, what it has to offer to Black people. Uh, uh, Jameel,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you
Please
for
tell
having
us a
me.
little bit about your background. You're a writer and what you do and your professional interest and what your aim is as you go through life.
Uh, Currently, I well, let me just give you my background. As
Okay.
I am born and raised here in Flint, Michigan. Did graduate from Central High School, 1991. Um, I currently run a government contracting consulting firm, and we do consulting for other companies as well. Um, I have recently done a report on the HBCUs, and that's some of the things that I think you want to get into today.
So when you get ready to present um, on a talk show like this, how do you prepare yourself? How do you get ready for that? What do you do,
Um,
knowing that hundreds of people are watching you, and all people don't look like us who are watching? So you'll be talking to a variety of
yes,
audiences.
yes. Um, with this particular subject matter, in regards to the HBCUs, I was just because I just recently done a report. Um, I'm somewhat prepared to go into answering some of your questions today. Um, but generally, I like to look at all sides, do my homework, make sure that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to a situation like this. And I like to be um, pragmatic in whatever discussions that we're having. So I'm excited about what we're about to get into.
Well, also there are some background questions that I would like to to ask you as you present yourself as an ideal Black American to whom many kids would gravitate to, irrespective of their color
Hmm.
or amounts of money they have with their parents. So, do you believe in the Constitution of the United States?
Yes, I do.
Do you follow it without apprehension?
Yes, yes. I believe that. Um, that's I wouldn't say a loaded question, but it's one that should cause everyone to really first read the Constitution. Study it, study its the thought behind it being developed. And here recently, in the last years or so, it's really caused me to go into not just reading it, but reading how they came to put the document together, what they were thinking about during those times. It gives you a little bit better context as to why the Constitution was written the way that it was.
So, I don't think I'm quite getting the drift. Would you explain more about that? Uh, Nail
Sometimes
it down a little bit.
Well, sometimes, okay, everybody knows the First Amendment, Second Amendment, but when you start to really look at what they were going through, um, recently I started looking at the original grievances that the 13 colonies had with the king. And through that, I was able to see how the framework of the Constitution was put together based on those grievances, how to start a company, a country um, that prevented some of the grievances that they had with the king. And so I could see the framework being framed because they say we don't want to be like that. How can we build a country in which these grievances that we're complaining about, we can write it and have a country that we want, the way that we want
Well, if you take a look at the words of the Constitution and you read it, it was not written in such a way that it would bring grievances to me as a black person.
it. Hmm.
It does not say all white people are created equal.
Hmm.
It says all people are created equal.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that gave hope that the Constitution was written for a variety of people in their interest.
That's true. I don't think until we really got into Dred Scott that it was actually that specific.
Okay.
The Dred Scott decision, basically there was a question mark there, and because of that case, um, we created the 14th Amendment. So in the beginning, no, we were not considered citizens of the United States.
But it was a well written document.
Yes,
Yes. And it was written for the ages. It was
yes,
written out. But the document can be perfect, but yet human beings are flawed.
that's correct.
Yeah, that is the problem.
That's correct.
So let me ask you, are you a proud citizen? Now tell our kids out there who think that you are an ideal American. Hang on, I'm not done with my question. Now, if kids think, irrespective of their race, color, gender, the amount of money that they have, um, do you believe that you can represent all kids of all colors and um, and that the Constitution fits for all people, all kids? From your perspective, do you
I
think?
do. I do. When we start being fragmented by color, religion, these are differentiators. Um, you can either decide to be described by those things or your own individual self. I decide to judge myself on my own individual merits. If
Can you do that?
that is a choice that you have to do that, and that's the choice that I made. Now, the society might look at me, and I'm not trying to say I'm not a Black American, but I look at myself almost as an entity um, that happens. The world happens to see me as being Black. Okay. Um, the same way I see myself as being an American. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I am an American, period.
I think people out there who's watching the show get some sense of of believability in what you're saying because there are many Americans who want to see Black Americans rise in their
Hmm.
own
Hmm.
for themselves, by themselves, to themselves, if you can say. And by you saying that, uh, that resonates with a lot of people out there who are pulling for Black Americans, who want to assimilate well in this country, who want to embrace the country as if it was created for them, for
Yes.
us, for all of the people. Now, do you think that the 14th Amendment, which you just mentioned, was the amendment not only uh, liberated, or rather, it it proclaimed that Black Americans were free now and forever, right? It
Hmm.
made that proclamation. But don't you think it also ratified for white Americans
Yes.
for the same thing?
Yes.
Because before that, we never addressed uh, people as Americans uh,
Or
with the
citizens.
yeah the
Right.
American citizens.
Hmm.
So the 14th Amendment did something for all people. It
Yes.
ratified it, pulled it together, explained what it meant to be American citizen. Before that, we didn't know.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So, um, do you think we're on the right track here? Do you think that if Americans can hear what you're saying,
Hmm.
and we're widely divided, and we're divided into blacks and whites and stuff like that, but I think the Constitution intended uh, for, and nature intended for us to become one over
Yes.
time.
Yes. The whole framework of the country, whole checks and balances, it's a beautiful design. It is meant to have swings in it, and the uh, checks and balances of it is supposed to check those swings from going too far.
Okay.
And at this point, it feels like things are swinging back hard in another direction. But that is the design of the pendulum and how it's supposed to swing. And basically, the Constitution is supposed to be the guardrails from keeping it going from one swing to the other too far.
Too far, like a pendulum.
Correct.
Okay. So there's balance.
Correct.
The American people can sense if it swings too far one way, this is what you're saying, it will swing back the other way
Correct.
because, and um, maintain that
E-
balance,
Right.
uh,
Equilibrium.
equilibrium, if you
Yes.
will. Let me ask you another question. Well, I know we're going to the Black colleges, but what I wanted to do was get a good sense of where you represent all Americans, because not only are Black Americans interested in Black colleges, even though Black colleges don't always get a fair share of the wealth, because they have to raise their money. They don't draw money down from a tax base. But
Correct.
the land grants in the 1860s, about 1863, started by Abraham Lincoln. And then in 1890, there was the land grant for Black colleges.
Correct.
At that time, Booker T. Washington was the man of education at that time. And he thought that Americans should, when the president asked him, what should we do with the free slaves? This was a profound, interesting question, if this were the truth. But I
Mhm.
believe that this is what I heard, and it may be the truth. He says, Mr. President, you do nothing. Well, many people thought that was horrible. They said, now we're kind of transitioning into the Black colleges and their roles. He says, you don't have to do anything. They will find their way.
Mhm.
Um, gave us, gave Black people a kind of sense of direction, knowing that they had to prove themselves
Mhm.
in society because society did not accept them.
Mhm.
But he says, Mr. President, you don't have to do anything, and they will find them the ways. But their compadres said, "Oh, uh, that's an Uncle Tom. He
Mhm.
wants us to work again.
Mhm.
He wants us to find our own way." but that's not the way we want to go. What do you think about that discussion?
I think that having to prove yourself means that you're inferior. That means you're less than when you're having to prove something to somebody. Um, that puts you already in an inferior position, wouldn't you say?
Well, yes, no,
Okay.
because if you think about what science says about the genome,
Hmm.
the genome is that part of science that elucidated the gene. So the scientists now have proven this is why you can use gene therapy to find out, or gene science to find out who committed the murder
Hmm.
by the DNA, right?
Sure.
Now it's very exact and very precise. This
Hmm.
is the will of science today. This is what they say is the truth. So, and what we do, we search for the truth. And in this case, science says that all men, I mean, all human beings, the Homo sapiens,
Hmm.
have 99%, 99.9% of the same genes.
Hmm.
That means that there, you can't distinguish between black and white
Hmm.
with the gene pool.
Hmm.
Okay. So if you're already equal, there shouldn't be absolutely no sense of, and if you know this, there should be no sense of feeling inferiority because you're already there.
Okay. Now
You might not perform as
that,
much.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's assuming everybody is it's coming from that particular uh, point of view or that
No,
particular
another point of view
understanding.
would say science.
Okay.
There's no other
Okay.
way. They have to either remove, if this is not a truth, we have to
Mhm.
remove DNA and liberate all of the people in jail
Right.
or for
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is everybody needs to have that understanding
it's
first.
not an understanding. They need to, it's not, it's something that should be known. If you're
Should
listening,
be. Should
if
be.
you're listening to
Hmm.
those people who understand these ideas and these
Hmm. Hmm.
truths, you would find that rather than debate people based on your color,
Right.
skin color.
Well, if that's the case, then why do you think we do it?
Well, I think that people make money i- just by being black. There are people who look like me will go out and find ways to make money, and so do all other cultures. Do that. They do that. So we have to be aware of that, and
Okay.
we have to be knowledgeable about how we define who we are
Hmm.
in the context of other people. You know, like on the bell curve, they have this bell curve,
Hmm.
and the bell curve, in the center of the bell curve, it shows people who are likely to believe the same things, who
Hmm.
can accomplish the same thing. Most people that live in the United States, the one who holds it together, is in the center of that bell curve. Not all people.
Hmm.
The people on the right are probably even more supportive. The people on the left are declining in the opposite way. And I don't mean right and left as compared to Democrats or Republicans, but I mean um, it's those people who keep balance in society.
Hmm.
Like you say, the pendulum swings one way and the other. Well, those are the people that do it.
Right.
And many of those people who are considered to do that now live in the middle of the country.
Mm. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. No, no, but you said you were talking about the inferior feeling, but
Right.
we should not have feelings of inferior. We don't all accomplish the same thing at the same rate. It's
That's true.
impossible.
Hmm.
I can't go out and jump with LeBron James. Maybe you can, but I
Right.
can't.
Right.
I can't resolve and mathematical equations like some people can. They
Mhm.
can take a look at it and,
Mhm.
and write an equation for a curve,
Mhm.
or they can take some experimental data and produce results that shows a trend in
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
People can do that automatically.
Right.
Einstein was one of those.
Right.
But not only Einstein, but my grandson can do the same thing
Correct.
because he's that good.
Correct.
Okay, so I wanted to leave you on that feeling of inferiority. That's what people are concerned about, I think.
Mm.
They think that everybody puts them down, but people don't put us down because of that. They put that, they, that's a feeling that comes from the way we behave and the way we act. Like Martin Luther King says, you want to be known by your character
Right.
rather than your
Yeah.
deeds.
Content of character. Yes. Hmm. Environment plays a lot in some of those outcomes, and we have to also consider that as well. When we look at even the HBCUs, what they're producing, they produce 25% of all uh, graduates, African American graduates, 25%. They produce 25% out of all the universities graduates in STEM. Um, the environment in which these HBCUs provide a quality education, you get a quality result. When you're exposed to it, you're in an environment in which you is geared towards you learning and excelling. The HBCUs have proven that the African Americans that come to their universities can compete with, some of the people that are coming out of Harvard, Yale, that they have the ability to produce the same quality when given a chance.
Do you know anybody that's known that have come from HBCUs that did well?
Um, just because I met him a couple of months ago, him and Senator Warnock out of Georgia. He is one that I know of. There's many, but that's the first one that comes to mind that is recent and relevant.
Kamala Harris
Yes,
graduated from an HBCU,
that's correct.
a very smart lady, but um, very smart lady. And there were many. I wasn't quite sure that Colin Powell was from one there.
I don't think Colin
What
was.
about Condoleezza Rice?
No, I don't think Annalisa was either. Um, yeah, there is quite a few of our late senators that have passed away um, in the recent last 5 years. Yep, it'll come to me. But
Well, okay. now, now here's a question that might be problematic for you. Is the country headed in the right direction under President Trump?
um, I believe President Trump's purpose is to wake everybody up. Um, and people who didn't pay attention to politics before, I find a lot of people are now getting interested in learning the laws and finding out how the Constitution works. So if nothing else, um, he has woken the American people up, and you have to pay attention to what's happening now in regards to you know and like I said, me not being on either side, then I'm free to make judgments when you do something good and you do something bad because I'm not tied into either one of the gangs. Um, there are some things that you know I happen to agree with some of the geopolitics that's going on right now. But domestically, um, there are some issues, and that's why I reference those grievances. Because some of the grievances that I looked at, some of the things that administration is doing is parallel to the very reason this country wanted to break away from the king. So it kind of caused me to pause when I looked at those things side by side. And what this administration is doing is the same thing or similar to some of the things that the 13 colonies had a problem with the king. So um, his term is not over. Um, but at this point, I think it's causing some people to have a.
I know. Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, that's my decision or my thoughts right now are I'm still assessing uh, what's happening there. There's quite few things that I don't like about what's happening, um, and then there are some things that I agree on currently.
Well, let me ask you. Let's look at the other side of that issue. See, that every issue has two sides. There's the country must have a strong government. That
Hmm.
was proven due to the Articles of Confederation back in
Hmm.
1876. Because the Articles of Confederation proved that the country couldn't do anything without a strong leader.
Hmm.
So now, in this case here, the other side, looking at the other side of the issue, we are a nation of laws. We're a
Correct.
nation of laws. And laws can be bent, of
Hmm.
course. And like with this pendulum action, like you say,
Hmm.
we can correct that.
Right.
But we cannot correct it as it bends too far and we move toward anarchy.
Hmm.
Anarchy will destroy the country.
Hmm.
And I got some questions to ask you further about that.
Okay.
But I like your position. I mean, I shouldn't say I like your position. Good position there, and I think that many people understand where you're going. They're wondering whether we're maybe um, going too far that way and
Hmm.
irritating people. But it's not all the people. You've got 3% of the people that's making this noise. It's not all the Americans.
Yeah.
And anything else you want to say about that before we move on? And I'm going to have you come back because I think that people are going to like what you have to say.
Hmm.
I think they're going to like your approach. Um, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, rate President Trump so we have a feel of where you are in
Right.
your perspective.
Okay. So that's another uh, broad question. That's kind of like who's the best,
No,
Kobe or Michael Jordan? Who's the GOAT of all times? It's okay. You got to
no.
have some type of metrics there. You know what I
Well,
mean? It's just
you know
like
here you got the wrong swing here. 1 to 10.
right.
Well, so
In what
here
area? That's what I say.
you
Immigration.
no, but just generally as the
Just
president of the United States,
generally.
as
Okay.
the POT, the POTUS.
I would say at this point, a 5,
Okay,
right down the middle.
that fits your characterization of uh, when you characterize the country when it was first being born
Hmm.
and the grievances that other people had against the king.
Yeah.
That 5 would fit into that trend.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
good job. Now, looking at what, give me 3 um, important issues that you're facing in this country. What are the three main interest uh, questions that you think that President Trump should be dwelling on, or the country should dwell on? Issues that tend to break us apart. What are they?
Well, the issues. Well, okay, that's a slightly different question, but okay. So some of the issues that are dividing the country right now: immigration, right? Um, you know, in the 1960s, um, that started the Great Migration. A lot of African American people started going from the South.
That's not immigration.
I'm not there yet,
Okay.
but they migrated to the North.
Mhm.
Okay. But subsequently, their replacement became the border became a little porous at that particular time, and so you started having the Latino community kind of replace the African Americans in the South.
How? How did they replace it?
Well, somebody had to manage the plantations, um, and so as they left, crops still needed to be taken care of.
Mhm.
And so, the border became a little porous at that particular time to supplement the migration north. Okay. And probably since then up until now, um, that border was porous for a reason. And that's what it was. Now like you said, we're a nation of laws. And that to me, if we want to be real and let's be honest, um, that those people were allowed to come in illegally.
Allowed. I'm not following you.
Okay, I'm saying they
The
were.
Mexicans are already here.
Well, that's true, but there was still a migration. How do you think that all of these currently right now, when we look at the United States and we have California, we have the Napa, we have all these places. So we can't say that the Latino community is not heavily in agriculture. We're not saying that, right? You understand
Yeah,
that they are heavily there,
I know. In the
right?
United States, they are the ones that keep us fat every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did they get there?
Well, some are already here.
N-
You got to remember that in 1863, at the same time, there was we 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 uh,
In the numbers that there are currently here,
uh,
those are not people that were here that
no,
just had
yeah,
children.
that's migration.
Yeah.
That's migration.
Yeah. So
Immigration. I'm sorry, that's
right.
immigration.
Right. So
But
these people, for the majority of them, are here illegally.
well, that's recently. But we've always had a quota on people coming into the United States. You have to have a green card.
Hmm.
You and we allowed a certain number, but you had to leave, go back home at the end of your stay.
Hmm. Hmm.
There was a formula and a process for this going
Hmm.
on.
Hmm.
And Mexicans came across the border fluently for
Hmm.
many, many years
Hmm.
without interruption. They did a good job. They made money. They took
Right.
jobs that whites and Black Americans would not take, and they kept our food flowing, and they repaired our highways and
Hmm.
hot sun and
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, and
I,
and you can see that that they are highly regarded in this country.
yeah, I would say this. This is something for maybe the audience to ponder. But my understanding is that people were allowed to come in illegally. And it didn't just start in the last 15, 20 years to supplement for the great migration that these farmers allowed these illegal aliens to come into the country and really caused a shadow slavery. When you look at how long it's taken us to come up with comprehensive immigration reform, we've been talking about it forever because there are certain people at the time that did not want it fixed. They wanted to leave it as it was. They didn't want the legal because they could pay people what they wanted to pay 'em because they knew that they were here illegally.
But who are you pointing to? There's something that you're saying, something that we probably understand, but we don't know the mechanism. What mechanism? Show us something. Tell us something that the how, who, what, why, when, and where.
Okay. We look at what we have right now, um, what those numbers are in regards to people who we feel are here illegally.
Okay.
Okay. Now, some of these people, even recently, some of the people said they've been here for 60 years,
Mhm.
right? Um, we have to, like you say, use math and see, okay, unless you're saying that all of these people came in the last 15 years, that mean they were they came before that as well to get into the numbers that they're in now. It's using simple math. Okay. We know who was manning the farms in the 80s. It wasn't us. Who was manning them in the 70s, 75? Okay. African Americans flooded the North. Okay. They had to be replaced. It was replaced by someone. So this just did not start in the last 10, 15 years. This has been going on. They were allowed to come in
By whom?
by the agriculture.
No, no.
Everybody that owned land, crops, this, that, and the other, this had to be the way. There was no going back home from California. There was no worker program where you worked and you went back legally with a green card. This was a porous border on purpose to supplement a crisis of migration to the north by African Americans. This was something that they had to do to supplement the workforce. Now that it is inconvenient, now I think based on the 2020 census, that basically said that those people would outpace certain groups, certain races, which is caused now to it's time for those people to go back home because we can't allow them to be the majority in the United States of America. Now, I think that's the dirty truth.
Well, let me see if I can analyze what you were saying. That there's a process by someone for reasons unknown that have allowed people to come into the country despite of the rules
Well, the
for
reason is
engagement.
resources. You had to
Yeah,
have people,
yeah, but there's a process to bring them in.
right?
And are you saying that the process was illegal?
Yes,
Oh, well, then say it.
yeah. Yeah, it's a legal. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
when I say the Boris was left porous,
yeah,
what I'm saying is people looked the other way because they needed the labor.
yeah, but that has to be authorized by Congress. and approved by the
Yeah.
Senate. I
Yeah.
mean, the
It's
House. You
supposed to
said it's
be.
supposed to be a
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and but I do know what I have seen instances, and you may remember the same instance that I. There were people who were in the Congress who had people that did day work for them that were in the country illegally.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of those,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
those would be far and in between, and
Well,
that
you have to look at the crisis, and this is something that the audience had. Sometimes I just like to open up people's mind and just say, and during that time, you do your own research. This is food for thought. That if you have that many African Americans leaving the workforce in masses, right? Someone had to replace them in masses to keep up with production. Just look at that as an example, okay? That is true. Mass migration happened. It's statistical, it can be proven. So, in that particular case, if that many people left to keep production up, what do you do?
well, that's interesting. This is a learning process for me because I was not aware that it was that widespread that was going on. And maybe most Americans didn't either. So you'll have to bring us some data that proves, that shows, that substantiates your claims.
Yeah, but it's an interesting perspective, right?
Well,
Something to think about that you
yeah,
you understand that there was a mass exodus, and if nothing was done, then that means production would have
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
plummeted. So it was an emergency. So in emergencies, you have to make an emergency decision.
Let me clarify, if I can. The Great Migration of Black Americans to the North started in the 30s. They came here to seek new opportunities. They wanted to leave the cotton fields and the cane
Mhm,
fields and the sugar fields and the potato fields where they were working for pennies on the dollar.
mhm,
And they opened up, and General Motors Corporation and Ford and Chrysler, the automobile industry, they were begging for people back in those days.
mhm,
And many of them came here, like my folks, came here to found new jobs.
mhm,
And they got hired by General Motors and Ford and Chrysler and the United States Steel and all of those. But not until 1941 did this bloom because when they came here and became employees of General Motors Corporation of Ford and Chrysler,
mhm,
they became part of the middle class in
mhm,
1937
mhm,
when the sit-down strike struck for the parity in wages.
mhm,
They had these women and Black Americans and all other people working for them. They became the part of the middle class
mhm.
since that time. And the things I would like to, when we get to HBCUs, I want to argue the point with them. They failed to do their job, HBCUs, because they were supposed to let the American people, when we have these tremendous changes in significant phenomena that affects the entire American people,
Mhm,
like, for example, becoming part of the middle class back in the 30s, the late 30s. Um, First of all, I got to ask you, do you believe that?
Well, the 30s.
You got to. There's one event that caused it. It wasn't all of the 30s, but it was the event that when we had the sit-down strike, and
Wildcats.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's 1937.
Mhm, mhm,
We had the sit-down strike. Uh, the and however the contract goes, who has to yield first. The rest of the automobile makers
Mhm.
and employees followed that one contract. Now, this was a contract against General Motors Corporation, where they agreed to pay people parity in wages,
Mhm.
and jobs were classified. So not all people got the same job, same type of jobs with the same wage, but they all, and General Motors and the union proclaimed at that time that they paid people the highest wages in the world.
Mhm.
Okay, that means those who were Black Americans were part of the middle class at that time, but it really didn't belong until about 1941 when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor,
Mhm.
and all those men left the South. The young men joined the military,
Mhm.
and that left a vacuum in the South. So the parents still left the South and came north to find new jobs in the north.
Yeah,
And
when
so,
you look at the census,
yeah,
the census 1960
okay.
census specifically pins that date, that year, that era as it's classified
Mhm.
as the year in which the mass migration started. Now
This
there
is
was
black, man.
right,
Yeah, okay,
black migration
okay.
from the south to the north. 1930s, you would there wasn't mass people hiring black people into shop factories during that particular era. During the 60s, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, things started lightening up in regards to actually hiring, black people um, into General Motors
No,
and
it
things of
happened
that nature.
before that because I have documented
I'm not
before.
saying what I'm saying is in masses. We talking about a few, but what I'm saying, the mass migration or acceptance into General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, started, during that particular era. The foundries, that was closer to the 60s as what I mean is in mass percentages. Now there was a few sprinkles here and there, but what I'm saying proportionate, let's just say proportionate to whites. Blacks didn't represent 25, 35, 40% of the workforce in the automobile industry or any of the supporting industries. It probably would have been more like 2, 3%.
Um, let me say this. I know what you're driving at. I happen to have the
I'm not driving
information
at
right
any.
here. Um, and now, in 1970, the president of the United States was Richard Nixon.
Mhm.
Okay, and there was a Democrat by the name of Point Monahan from New York.
Mhm.
The president worked well with him because General Motors and Ford and Chrysler, the automobiles and the union and all of that, would not hire Black Americans on the staff
Mhm.
as engineers
Mhm.
and as managers and stuff like that.
What year was this? I'm sorry.
1972,
Okay.
1970, because Nixon left the office in 1973.
Okay.
He resigned.
Right.
So what happened is that Nixon said, okay, so if people don't want to follow these positions and you feel that they're not qualified, then hire them anyway. That's, that was Nixon.
Mhm.
We never thanked him for that.
Mhm.
Of course, he had a Democrat too, Moynihan,
Mhm.
that was also proposing the same thing. So that's why I became part of the engineering staff. I'm a part of that history.
Okay.
So I know that's what you're driving at. That's where they didn't have where that big vacuum was.
Mhm.
So
So you're saying that you became um, in the '70s era,
yeah.
you were one of the ones that Nixon said just let them in, whether they're qualified or not. Is that what
Uh,
you're saying?
well, they said, well, we had a lot of people that had gone to college
Okay.
from the South. Most of these were from HBCUs.
Hmm.
And when you said that the HBCUs became part of the workforce, that's also true because they hired a lot of people who had college degrees, but who had not proven themselves.
Hmm.
And when you go out into the engineering field and you manage corporations, you have to prove yourself.
Hmm.
Everybody does.
Right.
Whites among themselves have to prove themselves.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's that part of the story. But we had, and I had written an article to the Flint Journal um, about 1970, uh, 1970, 1970. General Motors Corporation had the highest income per capita in the world
Hmm.
in 1970.
Hmm.
We had General Motors hired 68,000 people in this community,
Hmm.
Genesee County, with the 13 plants that were here.
Right.
And uh, and if you assume that 10% of them were Black Americans, and they got an average of $30,000 per year, that was the wages.
Hmm.
And if they got that much per year, and I proposed that and I was president of the Republican Party at the time,
Hmm.
and they said, well, uh, I proposed that if Black Americans was to save 10% of their income for 1 year, they would end up with $30 million, of which they could buy a plant because General Motors was beginning to shut down.
Hmm.
Here's an opportunity. The opportunity only comes by that window very slowly and, and doesn't ever stop. And then it disappears. Once that opportunity disappears, it's gone forever. So had we had saved um, money for over 10 years, we would be rich. We could rank with other cultures and having money to loan to the rest of the world
Hmm.
by putting that money in banks, become the sources of investment funds.
Right.
But I was told that Henry Hatter, that's that Republican Party talking to you.
Hmm.
That's that GM talking to you.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the man talking to you. That
Right.
stuff doesn't make any sense. Well,
Right.
those opportunities are gone now. This is not the first time I've repeated this.
Hmm.
And if you go to the journal, you will find my letter to the editor
Right.
on that area.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
But I wanted to clarify that it was that time that they began to hire staff
Right.
and people began to rise in general.
I think that financial literacy is what you're talking about.
Hmm.
It's something that in some cultures it is almost innate, that they learn to do certain things. They learn about finance early. Everybody, their uncles are owning stock, owning businesses, and things of this nature. That is talked about often. That it's a part of the culture and who they are. And I think that African Americans, um, that conversation and that's knowledge. That's knowledge, but it is not innate. It's not central to our culture. But it is something that should be. But people have to be ready for that information, and then when everybody in your community has that information,
Hmm.
it's when it permeates your culture that deeply, where everybody, maybe in the Asian community, they know something about finance because it's just so saturated in who they are as a culture. And uh, African Americans, we're getting to that point where we're starting to understand finance, understand tax structure, tax shelters, how to invest money. But it hasn't always been a part of our culture. Um, but I think that it should. So, not to say that people shouldn't have just came to that conclusion, or maybe just took what you were saying or your article seriously, but people have to be in a place. We're more comfortable with just saving money because a lot of places I know where that is. Putting it in the stock. I don't understand that stock market, but I know when I get ready to go to my bank and get my money out that it's going to be there. But they don't understand the statistics that inflation is higher than what you get on that savings account.
Uh, Jamil, you have been so authoritative, so knowledgeable, so persuasive in your arguments. I regret that we are running out of time,
Oh,
and I
no.
have not even touched the Black history. So I'm going to have to invite you back. And I think that people will love it because you have that way of uh, organizing their thoughts and speaking coherently to people, even taking risk in your positions, because that's what people want to hear. They want to hear people, new people, bringing something new to the process of how we engage in speaking uh, um, truth to power. That's what we do. We are speaking truth to power. And it's not the typical way where we are condescending or angry or
Right,
uncivil,
right.
but authoritative and
Yes,
knowledgeable. And many Black Americans are now achieving that kind of specter in our community. And there are many American whites who don't look like me who want to see us rise in the same way to make our country better. Um, and you were so good at that. So I'm going to have to invite you back to cover the uh, HBCUs because there's a great story there that we have to tell to the American people. And we have to go out and support our HBCUs. We have to make them better. We have to
yes,
help finance them. And I
yes,
think that you have a proposal on that.
yes,
Yeah. And
yeah.
we will get to that later. But I want to ask you one final question. Uh, if you were to think about this, how has President Trump, in the way that he's conducted his government and produced his legislation, although it's not had never been passed Congress, so it's could be uprooted in another generation of elected leadership.
Mhm.
These
Correct,
executive orders are temporary;
correct.
they can be changed. And that was just as a thought. Back in 1865, in April, when President Lincoln found out that Congress had passed his legislation where he required all slaves to be free, forever free.
Hmm.
That was and then of course in April the 15th he was shot and killed.
Hmm.
But he said, and things that we don't think about, that, and he had his own flaws, as all human beings do.
Hmm.
But we would have never known the fate of our humanity had he not taken those steps.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you back. I was going to ask you, how has, if you can find it, words to express this, how has President Trump uh, actions improve the quality of life in the way you see it for Americans, Black Americans, as well as.
Well, I would say at this point, I don't know whether or not that is what is important to him because it s- seems like on the surface, um, there is something more to come. What is apparent now, I think people find themselves trying to figure that out. Exactly what is it that is there for me? Now, this initiative, this $435 million that he contributed um, extra to the budget to HBCUs, you could say that that's one because it's never been done before, but it
Yes, it
is.
has. It has.
But,
He was the first one to ever contribute. Now, I want this to be made public because I happen to know my daughter was working for him.
hmm
And when she was a member of the uh, Department of Energy, President Trump contributed $50 million to HBCUs. $50 million.
That's correct.
Um, and then the next year, after his term was over, President Biden did the same thing.
hmm
Okay. And then he took money away from the Ivy League colleges
hmm
who had Black Americans on a scholarship, but they had never intended to assure them that they would graduate from the college because they were not capable of being in those circumstances. They chose people who they gave them the scholarship money, charged them all the scholarship money, but never guaranteed them a successful adventure at the college. So he took some of that money back and gave it to Black colleges.
Right.
This was a nice
Yeah.
gesture.
You're correct.
These things are difficult to evaluate.
Right.
And you have to have some principles that guide what is good and what is bad,
hmm
what is best for the country,
Right.
not what's best for us or for a
Right.
group of people.
Right.
And we can't live by drawing down wealth from the country just to benefit Black people. You got to
Right.
benefit all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. And but then the way it was framed, I have to disagree with that. And what I mean by that is that is still putting you in a group. That group still needs to like. It's more like you said, a handout. Like the country shouldn't hand you out something. That's kind of the way you
Mhm.
framed it up. That you know, not that you don't deserve it or this, that, and the other, but the country is not obligated.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying? I don't
Yes.
want to put words in your
No,
mouth.
you're doing a good job. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Not obligated to subsidize you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you say that again so some of my friends who don't understand that will get it?
Well, you're saying that the country should not have to uh, uh, supplement African Americans. Shouldn't have to take its resources to.
Well, I
Because
don't
I want to
mean,
make sure I'm hearing what
yeah,
you're saying
yeah,
too.
but the, they should be treated the same way that the major population is.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
If
All
you
right.
got,
All right.
take the land grant colleges versus the for major colleges like
hmm
Michigan State University of Michigan
Right.
versus Black colleges.
Right.
Black colleges received the land grants that the states were supposed to grant monies to the Black colleges,
hmm
but they don't do that.
hmm
And but in
Why?
for white college, I'm not sure I understand why it was done, but it was done. It was a mandate. They just decided not to do it. I
Right.
have not researched that,
Okay.
but we can make all kind of guesses and
Mhm.
stuff like that
Mhm.
about, and we'd probably be close to truth if you guess.
Mhm.
But we haven't asked them, and we have not gone to them and dialogued with them and
Mhm.
say, look, the law says that the Alabama should be giving certain
Correct.
amount of dollars to black colleges
Correct.
to fund them.
Correct. I think the whole HBCU college framework in itself is a testament to African Americans that says we don't need you. We will educate our own children with our own standards.
That was Booker T. Washington.
Right. So that within itself is saying, okay, we'll take it upon ourselves to educate our children, and we'll build a university. We'll build a structure to educate them. And has to this day, they're still existing, they're still educating, and they're still thriving. Now, I don't think that those should be looked at as an entity outside of the United States. It is a part of the United States. So when you say the United States should not be spending resources on African Americans, then I gotta push back a little bit and say that, we're part of the country too. We're not a subset of the country. We're a part of it. Those universities were basically developed on their own, have brought themselves thus far, and have contributed to the country. So it wasn't just taking. A lot of those universities, a lot of good research has come out of them. A lot of our politicians, people who have contributed to the betterment of the United States. And so I think that because of that, their contribution, that they should be supplemented something to continue to contribute to the United States based on what they have given. Then they should be invested in, because there's a hell of a return on investment with the HBCUs.
Well, thank you. We gotta end it there, Jameel. We've gone over our time, and but next time I invite you back, we will limit it to 35 minutes, which is a very good time, and it will cover required attention span that people have. Some have no
Right.
greater attention span than 8 seconds. So next time, I hope people will enjoy and love the things that they heard from you and
Mhm.
maybe learned from you and were inspired by what you said. And we got to remind people that this show was not intended to further divide us,
Right.
but it was to draw us closer together.
Yes.
We use black a lot here, but there are people who are just objected to the use of black. But our eyes will not our eyes will not deceive us. Only our hearts will deceive us. So we know that those we do exist in colors, and sometimes we have to say what is we believe to be the truth. And in this case, I want to thank you, Jameel Hassan, for the great testimonies that you've given us. And I want to thank my audience here for having to share with us. Although we didn't get a chance to call in and ask questions, but next time you come on, we can probably do that. But I hope you enjoyed the show for today. This is the In My Opinion show. And until next time, stay focused.